Good morning, everyone. Good evening to our folks in India. We are very excited today to be kicking off our regional series for the StorageX International Symposium today. I am Jimmy Chen, and my co-host will be Simona Honori. And we're very excited to be kicking this series off with India. India is a unique case study right now with a huge population and a global transformation that will be happening with such a large population. So we're very excited to have two speakers from India. Our first speaker will be Rahul Jain. Rahul Jain is the head of energy storage at Renewable Power, the largest independent power provider in India. And he will give us the perspective of the region of India. So Rahul, you are on.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone out there. Hope all of you are staying safe and healthy. Let me quickly take you through, as Jimmy has already mentioned, one of the most interesting spaces in energy storage sector, which is India. India, I would say, it's obviously very close to my heart. I live there, I reside there, I have spent my life there. But what all is happening right now in India, the entire transformations, the transition which is happening, it's very heartening to see. So before going there, let me quickly introduce me and my company. So I represent Renewable Power, which is India's largest pure play renewable energy independent power producer. We already have a commission the entire pipeline of almost 10 gigawatt plus, spanning across 10 states, 110 plus sites. We have been able to raise decent amount of capital to stay, to continue in fueling our growth. In terms of contribution in India, definitely, I think we have started making some meaningful contributions. We are already contributing around 1.5% to India's power capacity, which is, I would say, growing at a very fast pace. Around, let's say, in terms of sizes, as I said, 10 states, 100 plus project sites, almost 1,400 plus valuable assets in terms of employees, both at the site and at our various corporate offices. So this is where we are. And we have been chasing this space for almost now close to 3.5, 4 years roughly, tracking this, tracking the entire global space. How is it happening? So that's basically is what we were trying to solve for. And now, frankly, we have started seeing the fruit of it, right? So what's happening? What is the unique case which is there? The unique case of India's demand for flexible power, right? Why I'm saying this as a unique case? Why stationary energy storage? Frankly, while energy storage in India, both EV sector is growing, stationary storage is also growing. But I'll most likely talk about stationary storage right now through the presentations, while I'll also touch upon the EV space also briefly on that. But I thought let me spend more time on the stationary part, because that's where the real transition is happening, the transformation is happening. While most of the growth might get fueled through EVs, but the exciting space, which is very close to my heart, is the stationary space. So I thought let's tackle that first. So what is so unique about it, right? When we talk about energy storage globally, the broader applications which are applicable, the broader use cases which are predominant are things like ancillary services, right? Frequency response systems. There are fast response systems which are required, lending schemes, right? All of those take a major portion of the revenue streams accruing to energy storage, right? But in India, because of the current regulatory environment and the exact need of the hour right now, India actually primarily needs right solutions for peak demand, peak, let's say something which can cater to the peak requirements, right? And the speed at which we are integrating renewable energy into our grid. We are already at 150 gigawatt plus as on December last year, right? We have a commitment to meet 175 gigawatt this year, and frankly 500 gigawatts by 2030. So, right? So the entire enormous amount of renewable energy which is getting into the grids, right? Definitely India need a humongous amount of flexibility in those grids, right? Those flexibilities can be of any type. It can be deepening of merchant markets, deepening of interstate bilateral transactions, right? It could be anything, right? So, but where comes energy storage, right? Where comes the requirement of energy storage in India? Of late, India was at the forefront of renewable energy bidding. In fact, it is one of the first few countries to start a competitive bidding for renewable energy, right? And we have already shown the world the true cost or the cost of renewable energy, how it can be brought down while maintaining the right quality standards, right? So we have done plain vanilla solar, plain vanilla wind, plain vanilla hydro in till today. But now, frankly, most of the distribution utilities as well as system operators are now focusing on what we call it as a profile demand, right? Instead of a capacity demand, a profile demand, right? What actually now we are heading towards is renewable energy directly competing with conventional powers, with other forms of energy which the system operator uses, making it dispatchable, making it round the clock, right? So vanilla RE is no longer preferable. They are all focusing on specific profiles, focusing on their requirements, right? Another important aspect is that obviously India is a juggernaut of all the transmission networks, all the distribution networks, which spans across the country. However, there are very specific pockets where the renewable energy integration is at the highest level, right? Especially the western part of India is has enormous amount of sunlight, sun radiation. So obviously, most of the solar installations are happening towards that area, right? Similarly, the southern part of India is pretty rich. In fact, the coastal part of India rather is pretty rich on wind speed, wind integration, right? So this is so basically what I mean to say is that while the transmission network spans across the country, RE installations are happening in pockets, right? And that leads to congestion and ultimately curtailment of RE power. That's where the right amount of flexibility is required. Another important aspect, and frankly, I would say I normally am elated to say that while initially when we started on our renewable energy journey, there were humongous amount of problems. Nobody was taking renewable energy seriously at that point. It was said to be a pilot installations, right, which costed a few dollars per unit at that point of time, and nobody wanted to invest in that. Thankfully, that problem has been taken care of with the solar being the cheapest form of energy across all the energies which are present in India, right? But one specific issue or concern which is still there with the existing RE sources is their intermittency, right? The non-dispatchability of specific RE sources, right? They can be a cloud cover, solar stops generating, wind speeds are changing year on year, the patterns are changing. So really system operators are slightly wary of that how we integrate that, how we schedule it, how we assign the right amount of flexibility in the system, right? So these kind of use cases are fueling the energy storage demand. Now, you go to any distribution utility now in India, you go to any system operator in India, and they're talking about flexibility, having flexibility in the system. And that's where storage kicks in. Frankly speaking, in India, and I'll talk that in detail further down my slides, but storage use cases are being explored and are being deployed at all the three levels of the power sector, whether it is generation level or transmission level or the distribution level, right? Obviously, the use cases are different, but there are pilots happening, there are projects happening across all the three levels. Right. So what makes the entire Indian stationary storage industry the right growing industry, so to say, right? The right industry for energy storage. I tried bifurcating the broader requirements into three broader buckets. One obviously is and that is the foremost requirement which Government of India actually worked on, is to enable the right policies to be there to fuel the entire ecosystem, right? Second, obviously, would be to develop a robust supply chain. We need to have domestic supply chain to cater to the growing demand, right? And actually, the third one, which is effectively the result of it, and it's again a chicken and egg story, which basically the right supply chain creates the right demand, and the right demand creates the right ecosystem. And that's where we come, the entire policy framework enables this, right? So what India did, or what India is doing on the policy front, let's explore that. Frankly speaking, and foremost, India is already on its path to draft a detailed energy storage policy, right? And to that extent, that Ministry of Power is openly discussing the draft of this policy with all the stakeholders, all the leading equipment providers, all the technology providers, project developers, financiers, right? So they are taking all their comments, they're taking their responses and are drafting it. Very recently, they conducted a virtual meeting to discuss key highlights. And I just noted them down that these are the likely constructs of the draft energy storage policy, which is happening. And one of the first thing, which is very heartening to see, is that the vision of the policy is to build a technology agnostic. Then we are not limiting to a particular technology. It has to be technology agnostic, need based, which is the single biggest or single most important point to make any storage, any energy storage project viable, right? It has to cater to a specific need, right? And one thing which is very core to the entire Indian ecosystem, which is anything which we are deploying, it has to be financially viable, right? We have to find the right business cases. We have to find the right revenue streams to make the entire ecosystem viable and flourishing. Because that's when, unlike, let's say, we could have given various subsidies, various, you can say, exemptions, which we have given to RE for some time. But the storage policy actually devotes more focus on how to make the whole ecosystem financially viable, right? I'll skip through the points. I think I'll only pick up few interesting points. Yes, definitely energy storage, especially when integrated with renewable energy, is given a preference, and to fuel that preference, there are certain the costs, the losses, which anyways anyone would have been incurred by the transmission network. Those costs are expected to be waived off for charging and discharging, right? So that the storage operator rather can freely charge and discharge any amount of renewable energy which it can, right? Another thing which is very important and that goes towards India's commitment to both renewable energy integration, renewable energy targets, and their net zero commitment by 2070, which is the renewable purchase obligations. Each distribution utilities, each thermal power operator right, or thermal or large thermal consumers, they already have something which is called as renewable purchase obligation, that a percentage of their procurement has to have renewable energy, right? So the quantum of charging which is happening in storage through renewable energy, that is also getting counted towards this renewable purchase obligations, right? So storage is being touted as facilitator for renewable energy integration, right? Another thing which is very common and very flourishing now in India, which is something called as renewable energy certificates, which also is being made additionally, or which is also supposed to be made additionally to storage system. So effectively, there would be one renewable energy certificate for any megawatt hour generated through a renewable energy source. In addition to that, you will get some extra REC if that renewable energy is stored, right, and energy storage is being used to fuel that. So these are certain kinds of draft policy framework which is there. Apart from it, there are a number of transitions, as when I said in the initial part of my presentation, that Indian energy sector, electricity sector rather, is undergoing a complete transformation, right? So these are certain, obviously I have not highlighted all of them, but I thought it's worth to discuss at least these four broader buckets, which is one foremost being India is pushing towards growth of merchant markets, right? Real term transactions, real time exchanges of power, right? Just to shorten the time of delivery and utilization, right? The entire arbitrage works there, and storage, obviously you all know that storage works beautifully to capture that arbitrage. There is the famous thing which is called as California duck curve, that is already started showing its impact in India as well, with day prices getting subdued and sudden spike in the early evening hours, right? And in some states, it also has morning peak hours as well, right? So some of these arbitrages, a storage project can beautifully capture and not only earn revenue from that arbitrage, but also helps the grid in stabilizing these anomalies, right? When the demand is not there, they can actually get stored into this energy storage project. So this obviously is helping renewable energy projects to get set up, distribution utilities to integrate more and more renewables into their scheme of things, right? Another long due item which was asked for was ancillary services market creation. While this was always there, but a clear regulation, a clear improvised regulation was always the ask from the industry. Central Electricity Regulatory Council, who is responsible for these regulations. So CERC has already issued a draft ancillary services regulation. They have already given that. In fact, the draft has already been now notified. So there is now ancillary services. They are being categorized in terms of primary reserves, secondary reserve, and tertiary reserve. So as of now, while primary reserve is not part of the for private players, but secondary and tertiary are open for private players operations. Another interesting thing which is ongoing, and that also tackles a bit of intermittency part on account of renewable energy, is the scheduling and forecasting regulation, right? So there have been drafts already in this space. There are discussions happening on this space. Forum of Regulators is also working on this space to provide a specific, a clear guidance on how they will how a generator has to schedule their power, how to forecast them, and obviously the penalties associated with it, right? So because of that, as per one of the initial drafts, it was always mentioned that over injection, any over injection will not get paid, right? Any over injection over the schedule will not get the tariff for it, as against any under injection of power will get a penalty, right? So this is a very strong statement. Obviously, there are bands in which the generator can play, but this enables system operators to better integrate and feel more comfortable while integrating renewable energy space, energy projects in their space, right? So again, storage plays a bigger role here, right? Both at the generator end, or it can also be at the grid end. Both ways, storage is helping the system operator. Now, another interesting aspect was market-based economic dispatch, which effectively was introduced, although it's a draft right now, but it has been introduced to ensure great flexibility. Obviously, it will also support a greater RE integration, simply because now RE is becoming cheaper and cheaper. However, for balancing demand, storage, or let's say mid to long-term duration storage would reduce or be replaced with requirement of short-term storage support systems, right? So again, this will fuel the growth, overall growth of it. Now, going forward, while yes, the some of the right policies, at least the direction has been made towards creating a right framework or right environment. Obviously, there has to be some specific engagement, specific focus on creating the right supply chain, right? This is one area where India has of late started focusing on creating the right manufacturing system for whatever they are doing, being slightly self-reliant on that. It also helps in making the entire solution more economical, right? So because of for that, India has already announced. I think this was a global news, and India has done that for various sectors where they wanted to lay more focus on. And one of the core sectors was advanced chemistry cells, which India wanted to manufacture here in India. And there was a production linked incentive scheme which was introduced to fuel that. This was a scheme for a size of almost 50 gigawatt hour, right? So from where we stand right now, this is a humongous amount of supply which is being created to and by forecasting the right amount of demand, right? So the broader construct of this bid was that minimum you can go up to 5 gigawatt hour, maximum you can go up to 20 gigawatt hour. So just to ensure that there are a number of players present there, we are not laying all the eggs in one basket, we are diversifying it. And one of the core focus area of this scheme was that how much integration, domestic integration you can do within the next 5 years, immediately after the signing of your contract. Within 5 years, you will have to ensure that minimum 60% of the value addition happens here in India, right? So hypothetically, let's say if you are manufacturing cells, then you will have to do raw material processing here, right? Some bit of mining, whatever is possible, that should start happening in India, so that the entire ecosystem can be created. Very interestingly, the incentive was linked to two broader parameters apart from domestication. The two broader parameters were cycle life and energy density, right? So the higher the energy density, the more incentive you get, or higher the cycle life you can guarantee, the more incentive you get. So it was a matrix where incentives were mentioned. And because of all the enabling provisions, all the focus which has been shown by the government, the bid actually got oversubscribed almost 2.5 times, more than 2.5 times. So for 50 gigawatt hour, total bid capacities were 130 gigawatt hour were received, right? So the evaluations are currently on. This happened in January 2022, this year. Hopefully, this bid is likely to conclude in the next couple of months, and then the entire capacities, the time period to kickstart the manufacturing process will start. All the bidders are expected to commission their projects by late 2024, and by 2027 they will have to achieve the minimum 60% domestic value addition component, which has been stated in the bid. For that, Government of India has already given a budgetary allocation of around 18,000 crores, and this has actually been increased now with the recent budget allocation. So this was one of the biggest, you can say, supply drivers which has been created. What it did for the supply chain was that existingly, if we go by the supply chain here, sorry, I'll go up, sorry. So basis, let's say, mining of raw material refining, manufacturing, and pack assembly. If I broadly break the entire value chain into these 4 buckets, pack assembly is already happening in India. There are various players, although this is happening in a slightly unorganized way right now. But with the PLI scheme kicking in, this will start getting more and more organized going forward. But knowing fully well that yes, pack assembly is already happening and most people are willing to do this in any case. PLI scheme actually has been started from cell manufacturing and onwards and backwards rather, right? So pack assembly was left out because Government of India believed that yes, pack assembly is obviously an outcome of all of those things that will come on its own. So with the recent oversubscription and the kind of interest which has been shown by various EV manufacturers, various renewable players, right, various transmission operators, this is something which is likely to kick off in a big way. And almost I'll not be surprised if in the next 5 years India is sitting on a capacity of more than 100 gigawatt hour, right? Another thing which is happening, although this is happening in very niche areas right now, is the entire raw material refining space. This is already happening, but has to happen in a much deeper and a focused way right now. And I think with the PLI scheme pushing it, this will happen pretty soon. On the mining part, unfortunately, the most of the raw materials which are currently being used in currently prevalent chemistries, especially on the battery chemistry part, these are not, let's say, India doesn't enjoy let's say a big reserve here, right? So government of India has already started doing strategic tie-ups, strategic alliances. I think very recently, I think a few weeks back, they have already signed a MOU with Australia for securing some of these critical materials. Apart from it, India is also working on various new chemistries, new storage technologies, where India always have, let's say, decent raw material space, like sodium sulfur, like sodium ion. These are certain things which are already working. So if I bifurcate these broader technologies into short duration, medium, long duration, I think India is working on all of these technologies, whether it is flywheels, ultra capacitors, they are already are in abundance in India right now, being used in various EV applications, various, in fact, wind turbines also use ultra capacitors. For medium durations also, lithium ion batteries obviously are at the forefront right now. They are primarily because ultimately this is the biggest space of growth right now in India, and that's where most of the initial applications which I talked about addresses this part of the medium duration part. So interestingly, flow batteries are also taking or trying to catch a significant pie on this part of the cake. Right, there are various indigenous battery manufacturers who are let's say demonstrating their products, demonstrating their technologies, and a lot of investment is getting rooted towards that. On the long duration aspect also, India is very actively working on hydrogen fuel cells and hydrogen. They have already announced their first tranche of hydrogen policy also. This is, I think, likely to be a primary driver for the long duration space. Also, in addition, that pump storage, there are existing pump storage projects which are there in India, which is driving primarily being utilized by system operators, and they are also likely to survey some of the specific use cases which are required. Right. So in a nutshell, I can say that yes, supply definitely is getting created. Government of India has taken a right step in this aspect to promote various technologies. In fact, R&D also is being promoted. The Department of Science and Technology, they have been announcing various grants, various allocations for specific advanced or let's say highly advanced chemistries to develop and take those grants for that. In fact, there is a three-way partnership which is being promoted, which is basically the Department of Science and Technology, the academia, and the industry, all three coming together and promoting the R&D space. Right. So supply, I would say, is more or less on track. Hopefully, we would see a much wider ecosystem on this space in the next 5 years. But what is happening on the demand front? Right. Let's try and focus on that. What is happening on the demand front? So I thought that let's try and bifurcate the demand, overall demand requirement into these broader time scales, right? 0 to 1 year, which is now, let's say, imminent, urgent right now. So both states as well as central authorities are working towards it. They are bringing out various application-based tenders, right? Solar Energy Corporation of India, which is a direct offshoot of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. They are at this forefront. They've already brought out a bigger transmission link tender, which is almost a gigawatt hour of capacity. NTPC, which is again a large behemoth both in conventional as well as renewable space. They have also issued a 3 gigawatt hour tender. So these are multi-gigawatt hour tenders which have already been now getting announced and getting deployed, but serving different purposes. So this is the good work which is happening in all the authorities are working in conjunction with each other. While Solar Energy Corporation of India's project is primarily transmission linked, NTPC's project is more or less generation linked, or let's say the profile forming storage tender. Apart from it, there are already a couple of multi-megawatt hour storage tenders which have already been announced. Some of them we ourselves are developing, providing round-the-clock power, renewable power to the DISCOMs, or let's say serving specific peak requirements, peak power requirements to the distribution utilities. So all of those things are already happening in India now. But what is happening next, right? What is in line with in 1 to 3 years space? So very interestingly, there are various strategic projects which have already been announced by Government of India. These are projects in very strategic locations like Leh, way up north of India. Leh has been a union territory now very recently, and now the entire barren land is being developed into a humongous renewable energy park, right? And to transmit that power into the mainland India or the central part of India, Government of India is laying out a big HVDC line, high voltage DC line, to take it here in central India. This line will also be attached with a humongous or let's say a big storage project, right, which will ensure that while the intermittency part of renewable power is already taken care of by that storage, but also this will provide the right amount of flexibility to the system operator to maintain the grid, as well as this will also help in augmenting or inflating the utilization of the transmission network. Similar things are happening in western part of India. There are states like Gujarat and Karnataka who are already working on storage-linked projects. Both has separate requirements, while Karnataka is primarily working on distribution-linked storage projects. Gujarat, on the other hand, is working on generation-linked storage project, right? A centralized storage project. So all of these things are happening in parallel. And specifically, as I talked just now, that there are various policy factors which are fueling this amount of growth. In the midterm, I would say, mid to long term, 3 to 5 years kind of a time frame, ancillary services, open access, direct consumer sale, flexible solutions, right? When where you are selling round the clock power directly to the consumer, all of these flexible solutions will start fueling the entire growth of energy storage projects in India. Now, till now, I have broadly talked about stationary storage projects in India. Even in electric vehicle space, that is also, while primarily till date it was primarily driven by 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, which were getting electrified, and I think India has made good advances in that space, at least in the 3-wheeler space. That is getting, you can say, readily acceptable to the users, and is getting very, very popular here. Apart from it, 4-wheelers and commercial vehicles are also picking up on this space. In fact, some of the participants in the manufacturing PLI scheme, they are actually EV manufacturers, either 4-wheelers or commercial vehicles manufacturers, right, who are planning to deploy electric fleet in various parts of India, right? Through most of the government departments have already started using electric vehicles, so they are creating their internal demand for that. With FAME 1 and FAME 2, FAME is faster adoption of manufacturing of electric vehicles. These were specific policies to drive the adoption of electric vehicles in India, providing specific incentives, providing specific assurances and guarantees to these vehicles. This has already started showing the right fruits. There are a number of 2-wheeler manufacturers now who are actively working on improving their offerings, improving their analytics space on electric vehicles. This is actually is getting adopted by the 4-wheeler manufacturers also now, while the penetration is very low as of now, as we speak. But all the forecasts, whatever be the agency, that is quite heartening to see, right? One of the forecasts I have already mentioned here, almost 25% EV market share of the total storage market by 2025, right? That is the kind of growth that we are expected to see. Niti Aayog, which is the think tank, government think tank in India, they have already laid out very clear pathways, very clear framework, which can fuel this entire growth. And very recently in our union budget, which has been presented in February a few weeks back, government of India has already announced a battery swapping policy, right? So a clear, again, going by the ownership and the, let's say, delinking the battery vis-a-vis automobile manufacturing, delinking those and generating a specific demand for battery swapping, battery manufacturing to that space. So that policy is also quite heartening to see now. So in a nutshell, frankly, this is my last slide, and I want to broadly summarize in these broader 4 buckets. Adequate demand enablers are there now. EV transition, adoption of EVs is increasingly becoming popular. It is getting more acceptable now in the general mass of India, especially because of 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. The adoption has already started kicking in, and now with even the charger policy also, Government of India is ensuring that not only we have city charging or home charging, but we also would have a decent network of highway chargers also, right? Which actually will start negating the general concerns of the range inadequacy and the general belief that, okay, I would need some backup in case of a electrically powered vehicle. All of those are getting negated, right, on the EV space. And on the stationary storage, I have talked at length now. Those, obviously, the entire policy demand, and I think generally, even without considering the policies, generally the amount of RE which is getting integrated, this already has started fueling the demand. On the supply side, some of the things, yes, definitely there are custom duties and taxes currently which are applicable, and Government of India are actively considering to remove them, for at least for some time, to fuel the entire growth. Let's see how it happens, and it can at least sustain till the time a robust manufacturing supply chain can happen, so that broader demand issues which all the supply side guys would have, that can be negated for, right? And for that, we definitely have a good regulatory support. I would say, fortunately, a thinking government machinery, which are actively taking inputs from industries, actively engaging in various forums, various platforms. And all of these, frankly, I would say this actually is driving developers like us, investors. There are EV manufacturers, there are investors in stationary storage also, to develop more and more innovative business models, more and more value streams for these storage projects, and to make this overall solution viable, economically viable. I think I'll stop there. I have talked at length. Maybe I'll stop sharing, and let's open it up for any questions if you have.
Rahul, thank you so much for, excuse me, for your fantastic presentation, in-depth and comprehensive. It was great to hear about all that activity. Boy, it's a dynamic place right now with all those things going on. Okay. Let me also welcome Simona. Are you on too?
Yeah, I'm on. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Rahul, for your presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So let me start as the host with a very interesting question. So right now, when you're incorporating storage, are the storages, what are they, lithium-ion batteries? What is the material of these batteries that you're incorporating in your storage?
So frankly speaking, as I was saying, we are working on this for almost now 3.5 years now. And frankly speaking, at this stage, we are testing and developing almost all kind of storage projects or products which we can. We have been testing flow batteries. We have been testing lithium-ion batteries. In fact, within lithium-ion also, we are testing NMCs and LFP batteries, right? Simply because, see, ultimately, all of those storage products are being used and utilized in various environmental conditions, right? And India has a unique environmental condition, which is slightly different from the other parts of the globe. So we have been testing out these technologies, how they behave in Indian environment conditions, and are developing the right business models for all. So frankly speaking, as a developer, we have been technology agnostic and are trying to accommodate, or rather trying to explore all kinds of storage technologies.
And are most of these batteries imported, or are they actually domestically produced?
As of now, most of them are imported right now, because ultimately, as I said, the ecosystem is getting developed now. Okay. It will take at least 2 to 3 years now to bring us to that stage that we will have a complete domestic ecosystem. So till then, yes, unfortunately, it is all imported. That's right.
Yes. Simona?
Yeah, we have a question from the audience. And they ask you to talk more about the state of domestic mining of raw materials, or generally how they are secure. You guys are securing raw materials.
Sure.
Can you comment on that? Thank you.
Right. Sure. Thanks, Simona. So yeah, so that is one area which is of I would say at the highest priority, even for government and also for us. Because unfortunately, as I said, India doesn't have a humongous amount of some of these resources which are required, right? Nickel, lithium. Unfortunately, India doesn't have those reserves in place right now. So what is happening, and as I mentioned in my presentation, Government of India has been actively working on creating right strategic tie-ups with on a government to government level now. Some of these tie-ups, very recently, I think a few weeks back, they have already signed an MOU with Australian government, especially for Western Australia reserves. So they are trying to get those reserves and try and refine those materials here in India. So this is, I would say, already in development now. Some of these agreements have already been signed, and some are under discussions with some of the governments. So hopefully we should start getting good fruits.
Thank you, Rahul. Back to you, Jimmy.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's wonderful to see India taking on all these challenges at once. It's an amazing undertaking, and amazing to see the thought and the structure that's going into this. But perhaps we should move on to our next presentation, given the time. Simona, I'll turn it over to you for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great pleasure to me to introduce Professor Sagar Mitra, who is currently an associate professor in energy science and engineering department at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Let me just briefly give you a few highlights of Professor Mitra. He received his PhD in solid state electrochemistry from Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. And after completing his PhD in 2024, he joined the research group of Professor Tarascon in France. And then after that, he followed a 3-year period in electronic industry in Sweden, where he also was awarded the prestigious Swedish award on expert in electrochemistry for electronic industry. So he's currently leading the battery research team at the National Center for Solar Photovoltaic Research and Education at IIT Bombay, which is funded directly by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We look forward to hearing from you, Professor Mitra, on technologies and R&D in India. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Simona. Good morning and good evening. Okay, so today I'll be talking about electrochemical energy storage technologies in India, what we are doing. And also I'll be mainly talking about our research at IIT Bombay. So I am from Department of Energy Science and Engineering, myself Sagar Mitra, and nice to be here and connecting with a greater audience, a larger audience by this forum. So if you look at the energy storage, let's say electrochemical engineering, and this history in India is very old, because we are dealing this electrochemical engineering for a long time, and a lot of good scientists already produced. And if I look at the research, main research is going on before some of the research is going on in a large, even few decades earlier. So this is the three institute I feel is a major contributor in energy storage currently in national labs, which is a Central Electrochemical Research Institute, which is name is CECRI, and then Bikram Sarabhai Space Research Institutes, and another one is ARCI, so Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgies. So this is the first one, which already produced a lot of electrochemical engineers. And I think if you look at in United States, major contributions in electrochemical engineers who are coming from India, they are from this institute. So, and if you look at for all history of battery storage, the nickel cadmium battery, which is used in space research in our even space missile research and satellites. Here, this Bikram Sarabhai was combined with another institute, Indian Institute of Science. They researched in 1970, and that battery still we are using. So that's a technology development started from long back. Also, this institute, which is ARCI, and this ARCI also work on powder metallurgy, and they are well known for the powder, powder productions and large batch productions. So this is the main three institutes I feel they are contributing in energy storage for a few decades now. And come to the other institutes where even if you look at it, this is the all is the red colors. This is the one which I am working right now in Mumbai, and there's the India map, and these are all red color where the major R&D activities are going on right now in the battery storage. Maybe let's say 10 years or 15 years like timeline we are working, and few other also added. But if you look at most of the Indian universities or Indian institutes right now working on storage, mainly on the materials, and that is the general tendency everywhere. But cell or battery is not only the materials. You need to see how good you can pack that materials and make a device. So there is a lot of gap in between the material research and or maybe the lab scale research, bring it to the in the real R&D or D type of developments, and then use it for in the field trials. So this is the things what I feel is as a researcher, I feel there is a lot of gap right now is happening. But apart from few institutes who are working on the prototyping, apart from the battery research, like a material research or electrochemical research, few institutes are already working on the prototyping. We are one of them. In a research institutes or technological institutes, we are also working towards the prototyping right now. So one thing what we see here is as a faculty in IIT Bombay for last 13 years. So this lab scale research translate to the let's say pre-pilot scale research. You need to have a like a group type of research is required. It's not only the one group can work and then get it done. You need to have a collaborative effort by the different institutes and bring it there. So that is, I think, is missing right now, and maybe by time we'll very soon we'll be having that type of research. So if you look at what is requirement, I think Rahul was talking very nicely. What are the requirements by next 5 to 10 years timeline? And the numbers are very high. So if you look at the even renewable pan-India levels, renewable itself is looking for a very high number of gigawatt hour installations for battery storage. Also, it is around 120 to 150 gigawatt hour of battery storage only for EV, for four-wheeler. These the predictions are going is happening by 2030. And as Rahul was talking about, a lot of scheme was going on, and from the government sides, and all schemes are for the making the cells, because we are right now we are not making any cells or any type of battery apart from the lead acid battery. None of the batteries are made in India, at least in lithium-ion battery sense and sodium-ion battery. So in this sense, government is looking for some kind of project. They are looking for a bigger project, bigger deployment projects where it will be the cell will be manufactured in India. And this is the observations when I look at the researcher. Some of the chemistries what we are right now banging on, which may not be correct for the Indian conditions, because our climate things are completely different climatic conditions. And if you look at the average temperature of India is around 31 degrees centigrade, and goes up even 43 and goes down even 0 sub-zero some other places. So this is actually brings a lot of challenges for some chemistries. And what the business place is going on right now, there's a lot of schemes are out. So all are looking for some transport, like export of technology to India and making the sales, because once this need to have this much high number of capacity need to be produced. So obviously people look at the technology which is already proven by outsides, and that's a good way to think about it. So obviously that technology will be imported and then use it directly here. So things is a problematic right now. What I feel, you can bring the technology, but that much manpower, so a huge manpower, trained manpower, even skilled manpower is required. And I don't think India can give within another 5 to 7 years that many number of skilled manpower for this type of very advanced level productions in it. So that's another problem apart from the raw materials what we are talking about right now. So as per my opinion, this missing point, what we are missing right now, apart from what we are whatever we are discussed. So as a researcher, what I feel, few governments, if I look at outside, what are the government program already there in the worldwide? So ARPA-E battery, battery 500, even Japan having ELCA, Spain, Japan, and Arena, Australia. These are huge amount of funding which is given for from the government itself to accelerate their technological development, also D development, not only R, D developments. Also, we don't have the consortium project right now. We don't have the project like JCEAR, which is very well known in the USA, Faraday in UK, found over Germany. We don't have this type of pan-India level research center, which actually works all the scientists together and then work. So this is a huge missing point, what I feel, and they need to be look at it how fast we can close this this gap. Otherwise, maybe we'll be ending up with only exporting technologies, exporting manpower, exporting everything for whatever the demand, the local demand is. And that is maybe another things we need to look at it, apart from research. Okay, so let's, because that is the point I was thinking as a researcher, I should put it here. Okay, so I'll talk about from my perspective right now, what we are doing in as a lab. So battery research, I like separated in two points. One is metal ion batteries, other one is metal batteries. So I work on both sides. So myself working only on the batteries, no other things. So in the metal ion battery, so we work on lithium ion battery because this is the one I have trained and I worked from the beginning of my career. So lithium ion battery, I'll be working in the whole of my life. And then also you work on sodium ion battery, and calcium and magnesium ion battery is a small quantity. In the metal batteries, we are working for a long time for lithium sulfur and sodium sulfur. Today I'll be talking about some of the sulfur research, what we do. Also, we started solid state batteries and liquid lithium metal batteries. So This is the major things we work in our lab in IIT Bombay, and several other colleagues are also there. They're also working on modeling side. People are working on thermal modeling side. Some people are working electrochemical modeling side. Several people are there in our institute. Right now, if you look at all department having battery, at least one will get who talks about they are working on batteries. So this is a very interesting ID Tech was published, that they have asked questions. What is the top startups technology area in the current time? And the area wise, if you look at it, the 42 is near about 40% of people talk about the anode is the main area startup is coming up. And solid state is the next one, and then lithium ion cathode and the design. So this is another area is in the technological startup is coming up in the worldwide. And then is lithium sulfur. This is the current trend, and I believe the startup ideas, which is actually is the indication what type of technology transitions going on. So this is I believe in that. So I'll be and in our lab also we work on anode design, so that I'll show you one of my startup is on the anode design, special anode design, where we achieve some kind of dendrite free batteries in lithium ion with liquid itself in the liquid cells, and lithium sulfur. And some, if the time permits, I'll talk about some of the cathode work. I'm not going to work on the new type of or new cathodes. I'll be working on I'll be showing some of the cathode, which is already known by everyone, but we are trying to advancing by the surface modification so that we can see whatever achievement we can get out of it. Okay, so let's start with the sulfur battery. So this is one of the best paper I found that to start with the chemistry, because this is a very complicated chemistry. Let me try to show it in a very simple way to understand what is this sulfur chemistry is all about. Because we are all interested on sulfur, because sulfur is one of the sulfur cathode. If it is successful, sulfur cathode will be one of the most economic battery in the world, because sulfur doesn't contain in cobalt, doesn't contain nickel. Sulfur is easily available, a lot of blah, blah things are there. So sulfur is one of the things people think that may be a game changer. And when you start looking at, when you make a battery like a sulfur as a cathode and lithium or sodium as an anode, what are the things we expect? So if you look at the electronic configuration, sulfur is easy to let's say reduce, because adding 2 electrons, it forms 2 sulfur 2 minus. So when you make a sulfur cathodes, in this sulfur is embedded on carbon. That's a carbon. That's a way everyone start looking at it. Sulfur is embedded in carbon, and the sulfur is solid. You know, the sulfur is in the solid form, in native form. And when this you need to start reacting, means with the start, if you want to have electrochemical reaction, the first thing you need to discharge, means you need to reduce the sulfur. So that's how you're adding the electrons. So the first reaction should be the solid sulfur, then goes to the sulfur 2 minus. But solid sulfur, so when you start making this cell in presence of liquid electrolyte, it goes to the sulfur solid to first is going to dissolve and then form a solid liquid sulfur. This is the dissolution process happens, and as per my opinion, this is the one I think is the bad process for the sulfur batteries. It is we don't know when it's going to start the reactions, because it takes time, long time to dissolve the sulfur in the solid to liquid. And once it is formed in liquid, then it start participate in the reduction reactions, and every reactions we are forming like adding 2 and 2 electrons, and then forming different polysulfide like a S8, then S6, S4, S6, S4, S2, and the end product is and then every step we are adding 1 electrons. So several problems. It is well known that our the problem, the polysulfide is dissoluting in the electrolyte, and we are losing the electrode as well as the polysulfide is not, and the capacity loss. So many things are there. So this is known. So as per my sense of sulfur battery, the main problem is the sulfur dissolution, the first problem. And if you look at the dissolution problem, to start the reaction, you need to have a dissolution of the sulfur. And we need to see what the electrolyte could be looked at. Sulfur is insoluble in water, so water-based battery cannot be possible here. And sparingly is soluble in alcohol and ether. So we are right now using ether-based solvent, and which is sparingly soluble in ether, and completely soluble in carbon disulfide. And I think that is not a good solvent to work for the batteries, but that's the only solvent which is actually solubilize the sulfur. So let's say we start the reactions with the ether. Right now we are using the ether. So sulfur is slightly soluble in ether and then getting the liquid sulfur, and that's how we start reactions. And the main strategy most of the researcher does, if you can reduce the sulfur quantity very minimum and increase obviously that will increase the volume of electrolyte, and then you are not actually struggling because of dissolution, because small amount it may dissolve in a larger electrolyte. That's why the research are actually working on these directions with a very minimum of sulfur loading and the large quantity of electrolyte. Everything is good for your electrochemical performance and publish a paper. But when you go for a device level, so we cannot increase the volume of electrolyte, because that will decrease your energy density. We need to have a sulfur loading as much as possible. At least 78% of sulfur is required to get a desired like energy density. That's the main problem right now we are facing. Okay, so another thing is people all talk about, because most of us, even we also talk about in this reaction, which is a discharge reactions and discharge profile, and whatever explanations we have, everything is based on discharge. People are not talking about the charge profile and what is happening. This is well known. Okay, discharge is following this, a charge also following the same. But if you look at carefully, the profile, at least voltage profile, will give you the idea it is not following the same way. But people are not talking about it. So that is one other, if you are a researcher, if you're listening to me, I think you look at the charge profile also and see what are the problem can be, and what are the mechanisms, what are the pathways people are following, and which is true or not, that need to be look at it. Okay, so I'll talk about the same what I talked about, and several polysulfide formations was shown. And if you look at in the capacity, specific capacity wise, for different space formations, I'll show you in the schematics right now. And what are the problem I was talking, it will be in the schematic right now. So we start with S8, which is just start with discharge, and then we started adding sodium or lithium. It will be same, and the number will be on a little bit different. It will be first, so 2 sodium if you add, and then the capacity will be 209. And the first is opening of the chain and then going to the straight chain and then forming different polysulfide. I already said S8, S6, S4, S2 will be forming. So if you see, stop it here. If you stop it here, so you will see if you stop it here, like a S4, Na to S4, Li to S4, like a 4 up to S4 polysulfide. And this zone is highly reversible. If you actually target if you want to improve the efficiency of the cell, lithium sulfur or sodium sulfur, you can restrict your sulfur S4. But that is not possible. It is not very, I have seen some few papers where restricted to the sulfur to the S4 and then shown very high reversible characteristics. But I am not sure how good that can be explained in the when you have a dynamic situations. Okay, so this is one zone where it is highly reversible. But when you want to extract more and more, like if you add more and more lithium and sodium, so it is going to, because most of the people are interested to have more than, let's say, 1000, like a 1675 is the theoretical capacity. If you exchange all the sodium along with it, so it goes to the phase transitions. And here, the last phase where it is a solid, and before that these are polysulfides, which is actually soluble in the electrolyte. And all of us, we are actually working on the reducing the completely and then bringing back. And a few transitions are not very fissile, like I already marked it, sluggish. And several work is going on in these directions to improve the polysulfide dissolutions, to improve the sluggishness, And several strategies, like people go with the interlayer formations, people go with the cathode modifications, people go with the additives, special additives. Everybody is talking about several ways. So here I will show you one of the new things what we observed during these studies. We also took a like a pristine carbon cloth, and then very specialized way we have corroded this surface. This is a huge corrosion we have done, and then very controlled we made it, and made it very highly porous. You can see the holes are created very high. So here we made this this current collector as a host for polysulfide. That was our interest. And when you look at the cyclic performance, what we see that it is observed that it is the same way people observe at the the first transitions happen like a higher polysulfide to lower polysulfide, then goes to the transition to the solid phase formations. But here what we observe, in the one middle plateau was observed, and we are interested because this was not very common when we observed this. This is that middle plateau was not very much common that time. At least we have not seen much report on that, and people have, some of the people shown that, but not explained properly. And here also you have seen an 1.85 that the middle plateau is coming, and try to understand what is this middle plateau about it. So what we came up, I'll talk about in the next slide. So this plateau is very interesting, and that actually increased the open circuit potentials for this cell. And we are going behind this. What is this actually coming from? Okay, the even cycle performance is very good. Even the loading of 6.8 loading, we have, this results was not 6.8, but we have gone up to 6.8 gram per centimeter square loading, and milligram per centimeter square loading. It is doing very good, and for sodium ion batteries. Okay, so what we have observed here, that there's a few things we have observed, and we have given as a name as like a free radical coupling reactions. So what is happening here? So once this sodium is like a sodium sulfur is solid is dissolved in the liquid, and then during discharge of 2 electron added, it is forms S6 minus. It is already people have proven that when you start discharge or charge reactions, the di-anions and the mono anions is produced in the reaction. There's a lot of papers are there. It is already shown the di-anions and mono anions are produced. And what we have proposed in this this paper, at least, that this S6 minus is going for a disproportionate reactions, because we are using highly protic solvent and with a high donate number, and that is facilitating this S6 minus going to S3 monoanion, the mono radicals. So that formations, we think that this is a entropy driven process, and it is forming, and there's a too fast scale is forming. And what we are proposing, this is not, we are identifying this S3 mono anion is producing. Also, due to this, our highly corrosive surface was produced, where the dangling bond was produced, which is act as a again free radical. So here what we are proposing, once it is formed, immediately it is actually coupling with the radical from the carbon, this carbon host, and that is actually restricting your sulfur polysulfide dissolution, further also catalyzing the reaction, because we are not allowing further polysulfide like S6 go to the lower. Immediately it goes from here to the like a sodium disulfides. So this is the observation we have found, and then we'll show you by different experimentations what we are showing, what we are saying. It is actually shown in the experimentations. So we have done because this is the radical formations you need to see in the in situ format. So we are looking at what experiment you can do in, and we are available in our lab. And we see, okay, so Raman is one of the sensitive experiment, can be probed by the sulfur can be probed by the Raman. So we design a coin cell where the one side, which is the cathode side, so this is sulfur side, which is have a hole, and then we have used a additive, transparent additive to make it not reacting with the air. So this experiment was done in an in situ mode. And then what we have observed, very interesting point we have observed, what you are talking about, same thing you observe in this in situ experimentation. So you see that there is a few observations. So you can see here, you started from OCV and then started discharging it, like you're releasing it. And at 1.5, you can see one new peak is coming, which is actually written here. It is a 518 centimeter inverse, which is, we say it is a S3 monoradical formations. And another one, you can see the other two peaks, another two peaks are coming, which is 418 and 377, which is again confirming that S3 monoradical is forming. And the same time, the lower polysulfur is actually forming. That is confirmed from the in situ experimentations. And this is one of the experiments we have done and then shown that is okay, whatever you are talking, it is actually is happening in our system. And the same thing we have explained here also, same was what I was talking about. Okay, so we not only stop there, we also work on the electron, like a ESR, which is ESR will give you that it's actually the radical formation is happening or not. So we have done and see that when you work on the pristine carbon, that is a carbon cloth, there is no free radical because we have not created any dangling bond. So when you have activated, partially activated, we started seeing that the signal is coming. That shows that free radical is formed. When you have a strongly activated, you can see the strong signal of free radical, which is coming from carbon dangling bond. And the same time, when you look at the electrolyte system, which is actually giving you the S3 monovalent anode, and see that there is also peak is there. And this spectra is not very good because it's a carbon fiber. It has carbon fiber top of that this electrolyte catholyte was there. That's the reason it was not very strong signal we observed. And that and what we are saying here, so this radical and when it is formed here, S3 is actually coupling and then making a polysulfide absorb on the surface and also catalyzing the reactions, because we see that the sluggishness of the reaction is not there. Also, we have same thing we have proven by the XPS in the dry state, and see that whatever the formation of CS bond, what we are talking about, it is already there. You can see this is already a CS bond is forming. So that is again proving one of the proof we can give that what we are talking is in the right directions. Okay, so that this is we observe, and then we are looking at other things which we will already have published on magnesium sulfur. We have seen the same thing is also happening in magnesium sulfur. So in this case, the magnesium sulfur batteries, what we have extra thing we have done in the top of the carbon fiber, we have used the polyaniline as a electronic conductor. We thought of maybe electronic conductor is required from our previous report, but here when you start looking at the this free radical mechanism, once you observe there sodium sulfur, we thought maybe look at it, the other work where we have observed this, it is correct or not, and it is validating for other sulfur reactions or not. So here also you see the same thing. So same explorations is going here also, but extra things what we have done some lifetime experiment to see that the lifetime of the free radical is matching or not. So what we have seen here, the polyaniline, when you do a single only polyaniline, it shows 3 type of times, like a 50% shows 0.59 nanosecond time scale, and 38 like around 40% shows to 2 nanoseconds, and very small amount are 5.2 nanoseconds. And when you do the same experiment, lifetime experiment for photoluminescence, what we see that magnesium sulfide, like this is the catholyte, is actually shows a smaller time scale, so like 1.3. And that shows there is a possibility that polyaniline free radicals, which is can be combined with the polysulfide from the magnesium sulfur. So the similar type of what we observe, similar type of explanations we have is given. But when you do a polyaniline together with magnesium sulfide, then we see the distribution that the lifetime is increasing. You see the red plot, the distribution is little bit spread out. So we need to do more control experiment. Here we supposed to do in situ. We have not done because of our limitation of the experimentations. So in the future, maybe we'll be near future we'll be doing that. but there is some kind of environmental effect also coming, and the interactions, we see that there is interactions which is happening due to the polyaniline. So here we are saying that polyaniline is giving a catalytic effect by combining the periodical, which is coming from polyaniline and combining from the sulfides. Okay, so next is, if you want to use any metal electrodes in a sulfur batteries, we need to protect this metal electrode. That's a very common practice all the time. So here we need to see how we can protect how well we can protect the lithium ions. So if you look at the lithium ion, very old literature of the lithium metal electrochemistry, so two type of ACI was suggested by this. I think I've given these references, where you can see if the ACI or surface film is a electronic insulator, and there is two things can happen, or it is an electronic conductor. So two cases can be happen. If it is electronic conductor, so it has shown it is the uniformity of the further deposition from the electrolyte decomposition is very uniform, and it is seized after some time. And if your your surface film is insulator type or is a mixed insulator, so there is a deposition of lithium is what is called the very uniform, very uniform deposition could be looked at it, and there is a and further will not see, and then there will be growth on the lithium metal. So that shows that if you have a your surface film is insulating type, you will have a probability to form a dendrites. So based on that, you start looking at the carbon or lithium literature, and then see the what type of ACI compositions are. So most of them you can see it is a conductive type, and some of them are like a semiconductor type. So if you look at it, one of the compositions is like a, if you look at some of the compositions of your surface film can be conductive, so then maybe we can prevent your dendrite formation. The similar type we worked on is lithium nitrite formations. There is a several research paper there on lithium nitrite deposition on lithium metal and preventing it. So here what we have done something different, which is a very simple way we make this. We saturated the nitrogen gas in a liquid electrolyte and then dipped our lithium metal, and very controlled way form this lithium nitrite deposition on the lithium metal, and a very thin film. And we have done AFM and see the roughness created on the lithium nitrite, and it has shown that very thin and not very rough surface was created. So that's actually, this was created, and then you can see the ACM also images shown that very uniform lithium nitride deposition happens, and lithium nitride is well known as a conductive lithium conduction there, and that we feel that may be preventing the lithium dendrites. Obviously, we've seen that up to 45 minutes of etching, when you do the XPS etching on XPS, we see the lithium, whatever layer we have formed is around 500 to 540 nanometer of thickness of lithium nitride layer was formed on the lithium, and that is a very optimum thickness we have observed by several trials, and that we actually standardize our process. And we studied some of the DFT to see how the growth is. You can see the two site was identified, one A1 and A2. One will give you horizontal growth, other one will give you vertical growth. And when you calculate that, see which growth is a preferential, we see the very minimum difference in the energy. And we see that maybe the both way it was formed, and then it created the three-dimensional film on this lithium surface. There's very minimum energy differences in this. And when you do symmetrical studies to see the film is surface film is actually working for us. And the black color, what you see in the plot, which is only bare lithium, which is not modified. With the modified one, there is no deterioration on the. The passivation flame is actually working for a large current, even lower one. If you see the large current to the even lower current, both are working fine. So then we started using that lithium metals foil, which is covered by the lithium nitrate against the sulfur. And we see that there is a several difference on the polarization. Obviously, it is shown is very minimum polarization. Cycle life also improved. And here, if you see, if you are not even modified it, then you can see the disturbance, and then cell is actually failed. It is, we have done several other things, but the time we may not discuss. But the main problem is the dissolution, the sulfur, because we already talked about sulfur dissolution is a problem. But when you make a cell, and in electrolyte which is slowly dissolving, so if you are not even doing any charging or discharging, keeping on a full charge state, it starts slowing this one because of chemical reactions. And the sulfur dissolution, and look at it up to the 30 days, 60 days time, and see which one is giving better. So we have seen that our coated lithium metal is giving better surface protections, and then it is not cell discharge is very restricted right now. And the values also very good. If you look at it, it's around 90 to 100 ohms after 30 days is observed. The internal resistance on the lithium side, which is good for the cell. Okay, so another activity I was going to talk about, which is a let's say a lithium cobalt oxide, which is well-known. Lithium cobalt oxide well-known for the lithium chemistry, because we are using for all the consumer electronics, and the demand is keep on increasing. The main problem of the lithium cobalt oxide is cannot utilize the full capacity. So we tried several, right now several papers are out on lithium cobalt oxide from our group. So I'll show you maybe one or two things. Why I'm interested, because I like this chemistry. This is very interesting chemistry. If anyone is interested to learn electrochemistry and this lithium and battery, they should work with the lithium cobalt and graphite. It's a very standardized chemistry. You'll understand so many things. So there's a low high volumetric energy density. So that's the reason we have done some coating work. But here I'll show you just to modify the electrolyte. So what we have done here, we used a conventional electrolyte and ionic liquid as a hybrid mode. At least 39% of ionic liquid is used, and that's an optimum concentration I've seen. And then seen that it's actually creating very good surface film and is enhancing the cycle life of LCO. Also, you can extend your potential range up to the 4.4. And we look at it, two different ionic liquid. You have TFSI, two anions. Anion effect also looked at it, TFSI and PSI. So we have seen the TFS is better for some applications. At one thing we also interested to know here, so which is if I use or modify any electrolyte, what type of corrosion behavior you'll see in the anode, in the cathode side, in the current collector. So these are studied and see that our hybrid electrolyte is precipitating very nicely with even the first cycle itself, and then protecting further. That's a good thing for if you're using a hybrid electrolyte compared to the conventional electrolyte, and that passivates and that actually save your battery. So this is one of the propositions is we have worked on, and we have gone through by several experimentations. This is microscope, the optical microscope experiment. We have seen which type of anion having better effect. I have already seen that TFSI having a better smooth passivating layer compared to FSI, and we have seen very detailed XPS analysis and shown that it is what type of component is actually. We found that aluminum hexafluor PF3 is actually responsible for very smooth passivation layer. Okay, so another we recently submitted this also with LMO. LMO is having several problems, the dissolution problem, cracking problem. So what we have done, we have the special coating as used, which actually the coating materials and the LMO actually here to the lattice parameters are actually matching. So that way we use the coating of NMC top of the LMO, and its behavior is fantastic. So this paper is we have submitted this, and we have observed even 500 cycles there is no cracking, dissolution is very minimum, and we have made even power cells study. So this is still under work right now. Okay, so apart from the research, so several things we are doing. We are also doing prototyping. So we have a lab of prototyping where we are working some of the sodium-ion batteries prototyping, lithium-ion batteries prototyping. I'm not interested on the like a same commercial chemistry too. Just for learning we have done, but now we are working on the new technology development. So all these cells we are made, it is in our facility. This is recently made 1 ampere hour lithium sulfur pouch. And this facility, it was utilized to develop a new technology. I'll show you one new technology, what we are talking about here. Okay, so this is one of the new technology I was talking about. So we made, I already said that we have designed a new anode, which is a dendrite free. I'll show you. This cell was charged for 200 cycles and kept it at charged conditions to make sure there is, if any dendrite forms, it will be there. And then in a liquid state, this battery is liquid, and then we started slicing it. And this type of demo you can see in solid state battery, but it's a liquid state also, there is no fire. So this is the full charge conditions, and we are slicing the batteries. And that shows that there is no dendrite. So this student of mine who has done my PhD, so along with him, we have made this startup right now from IIT Bombay. And this is the cell performance. We have made the 15 ampere cells right now in the trial. And the outstanding behavior you are showing. This is in the cycling of 1C cycling. So we are doing some more, and we are interested to have some VCs interest so that we can take it up for the self manufacturing. I think this is my last slide. Several people need to be acknowledged. This is my lab mates 2019, before pandemic, and thanks IIT Bombay and other all colleagues. Thank you very much. I'll stop it here. If any questions, I can happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Professor Mitra. That was very insightful. Jimmy, I can go and ask Professor Mitra some questions, unless you want to.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah. So you talk about sulfur battery, so what I would like to know, and it's a great technology, if we get it to work, if we get it to really be able to address some of the issues in the current application, that would be great. You know, we don't use metals, we don't use cobalt and nickel, so it's all good. I wonder, you know, if you can comment on the performance, the agent degradation performance of this technology, and what do you think needs to be done before we can get to a point we can deploy this technology and in a safely and performing way?
Yeah, you are talking about sulfur technology. Yeah. So as per my opinion, right now we are facing, I mean, worldwide is facing on the cycle life, not much cycle life, also self-discharge. And another one, if you work on the internal battery, I feel you understand that internal resistance is changing with time. That's a big problem for BMS design. So whoever working on the electrical side, so they understand the problem of sulfur batteries. So these things is maybe inherent problems. So need to look at, maybe you need to redesign our the power electronics. But if we go to the chemical side, I think we need to work on more on the stability, and then obviously the anode need to be protected. That's the main thing right now. People are looking at it compared to, because many work was done on many work was already done on the cathode design. I don't think cathode may not be looked at that much. Electrolyte as well as the lithium metal passivations need to be looked at it. Another observation I have, let's say, the separator need to be looked at it right now. Separator is also not suitable for lithium sulfur batteries.
So there are many opportunities in that space.
Yeah, for researcher, many opportunities, but I feel we need to have strong funding, large funding, and strong groups together, work together and bring it. This is a lot of possibilities because sulfur is very, the proposition is very good, I think, as per my opinion.
Very attractive technology, yeah.
Yeah, very attractive. And then, and energy density wise, if you can easily get 400 watt per kg. So that's a very attractive things for the battery technology.
Yeah.
And we need to work on it. A lot of things are there. We need to work on it, which is not discussed. Most of the material science people, they won't discuss much. But there's a lot of insight out there which need to be worked out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Mitra. So I have I see that you have a number of startups associated with these new efforts, and coming from the Silicon Valley, I'm interested in sort of what you feel like is the environment for new startups in India, and how how can this be improved if it's and nurtured in India?
Yeah, this is a good question. Even I am also looking for that. What I observe in India, most of the startups are not interested on new technology or new, let's say in India I'm talking about. They are interested mainly on the software based or packing or module, some kind of tech there where they can get immediate some kind of revenue. Very few, even very few, even you can count, who are working on the battery technology, like a technological improvement, or even the current technology needs a lot of efficiency improvement. Even the commercial technology is not very efficient. Even if you put in our climate, it doesn't work even a few thousand cycles. So they need to have a lot of new improvement is required. There I see there is a lack, and there is a lot of opportunities. We have a bright mind in our countries. Even I see that California, compared to Californian like startup culture, where a lot of new innovations are coming, compared to India, I don't think any battery innovations is coming. Very few we can count, and that is one area we should actually look at.
Yeah, it's certainly that challenge is not unique to India, given the long adoption time it takes for new battery technologies and to scale it. So you have to build either a brand new factory, or it could be very expensive to convert an existing battery factory to a new chemistry.
Yes.
So this is one of the challenges we have, and it's even seen quite a bit in Silicon Valley, where new batteries technologies, there's a tremendous interest in them, but there's also this realization that adopting of a new chemistry is a journey and it has to be carefully considered, which is one of the reasons why many people are looking at ways to facilitate sort of the pilot and scale up tests, before there's a whole huge investment to really vet it out on the most promising chemistries. So
even if you look at the commercial chemistry, there is a lot of things are going on right now. The process optimization, so a lot of process which is time consuming, even power consuming. The big industry is also working on that to optimize that. I think we should work on that in a research level. We should work on, because this will be the one which our when you start looking at that many large industry will be making sales here. I think that type of expertise are required for even that. That's my big wonder, that how will you actually give that many manpower, which is skilled manpower. This is a big problem will be there in India very soon.
Yeah, that actually one of the challenges that Rahul mentioned was the needed manpower. You just mentioned that also right now for that kind of a scale up.
No, we'll get the manpower. Manpower will get it, but skilled manpower, that who having a skill in this technology, that is missing.
Right, and so as someone who's sort of in the research and the educational capacity, how do you see that being addressed? And what ideas do you have on how to help address that huge chasm of a skilled manpower gap?
Yeah, so this is the one I think we should take it immediately, because another 5 to 7 years this manpower will be added to the system. If you are not having a bigger, like what I already talked about in what we are missing in India right now, the large group projects, large projects along with foreign universities who has already known this type of, we are already experienced some of the problems in the technological side and give a advanced training along with them. I think we should have that type of center or like a consortium mode with a large funding, because we need to have funding. Otherwise, very difficult for 1 or 2, maybe 5, 6 institutes. Is not that. I don't think that they cannot produce. How many students they can produce? Let's say per year, 2 or 3.
Right.
So it's like another 10 of like me can produce 20, maybe 100, but that is not the solution. We need to have few thousand.
You have a huge workforce, a skilled workforce to really go
and
after.
you will not get, because you see that there, even Europe is facing that, because they are not getting skilled manpower for their gigawatt factory.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Francesca.
Hi.
She is listening to me now.
She was listening to you. She's learning. She's learning. We have to start very soon here to educate the next battery workforce. Yes. So yeah, battery workforce is a challenge. It's a problem also in US. You know, we need to really educate the next generation of battery system engineers. We need them in many sectors, not just automotive or transportation, but also grid. So yeah.
Maybe we can invite Rahul to join us. Rahul? Yeah, thank you. This has been a really insightful review of some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that India is taking on right now. And certainly it seems like at the very beginning, though, India is blessed with a tremendous amount of capacity for renewables, solar and wind. Could you speak on that a little bit? And you know how India might best start to harness that?
Right. I think a very valid point raised by you, Jimmy. So, see, frankly speaking, India has been adopting a couple of different approaches here. While, as I mentioned during my presentation as well, there are certain parts of Western India which has been truly blessed by excellent amount of solar radiation. So those areas are actually being developed as large-scale solar parks, right? Where almost tens of gigawatts of solar projects are being set up. Similarly, states like Gujarat, states like Karnataka, which is down south in India. These are certain states which actually are unique in the sense that they have good amount of solar radiation as well as pretty decent amount of wind speeds as well, right? So frankly speaking, these sites or these states have been developing as kind of hybrid projects, right? Where we are mixing up solar and wind together and then supplying the power to the grid. Now, situation happens is that there are certain locations where you are setting up huge chunks of solar parks or wind power plants. Then there are locations where actually you are setting up distributed storage, or rather distributed solar rather, right? Small amount of 10 megawatts of solar projects. Or let's say cities like Delhi, where you might see more of rooftop projects because there is no space to set up a huge chunk of projects. Right. So what is happening is that's where storage actually starts playing its role, right? While in Delhi, we have been testing blockchains with these rooftop projects, right? Feeder level distribution storage systems, right? Where the specific feeders are being strengthened to accept those renewable energy generation, as well as, let's say, the SECI 1 gigawatt hour project, which I was talking about, that is getting set up in the western part, which is Rajasthan. And that is primarily being set up to actually absorb the humongous amount of storage power which is getting generated through the solar parks around that substation. Right? So that 1 gigawatt hour actually will be not only will be smoothing the RE which is getting generated, but also leveraging the transmission network also. Now, there are certain very strategic projects which are being announced and are, you can say, pet projects of the current government. So projects in Leh, which is high up north, right? For almost multiple decades, that area has been left undeveloped, I would say, because of the remoteness of it, because of the overall geography that it is. But one thing which is very peculiar to Leh is that it has the maximum amount of solar radiation in the country, much higher than the state of Rajasthan, right? Because of the clear skies, because of absolutely, let's say, no heat, which again also incentivize higher generation of solar projects. So that area now is getting developed, and now frankly with the hydrogen also playing part of it, government is actually trying to develop that specific area in setting up of hybrid power plants, which some of it can be consumed locally for, let's say, production of hydrogen, and then again converting back into ammonia, right, and then transporting that ammonia into other parts of the country, right? Right? And then there are transmission line storage projects which are incentivizing the let's say the transportation of renewable power plants, renewable energy from that place. So because of its divergence nature, India is actually adopting multiple discrete policies to actually integrate this. Because ultimately, see, we have committed 175 gigawatt by 2022. We are already at 150. We're very close to achieving that. Now, the next target is the 450 megawatt and the 500 megawatt, which has been announced by 2020. So those are the targets. Now, frankly, we have started working on, and this the transition has already started happening with certain decommissioning of captive or rather thermal power plants, conventional power plants, and replacing it with base load renewable energy power plant. Right. So those transitions actually will drive the next wave of renewable generation in India.
So then are these solar power plants already cheaper than the plants that you're decommissioning?
That's right.
So
That's
it's
right.
economically driven.
Yes, exactly. Much, much cheaper. So frankly, if I talk about in Indian rupees, I'll take an example. The last thermal tender, which was auctioned, it was for shorter period of shorter contract period, but the rates which were discovered was almost 4.5 rupees per unit, right? Which is roughly around 60, 65, 70, around 70 cents roughly, right? As against that, the cheapest solar power currently in India is less than 2 rupees now. So less than half of the conventional power costs, right? Obviously, we should be adding transmission cost to it, the intermittency cost to it. But even after adding those costs, renewable energy is still cheaper than the conventional power plants. So it is purely on economics now, which is happening with the transition which is happening.
I have a question on maybe following up on this comment. And at some point for Rahul, some point you talk about the fact that India is transitioning from internal combustion engine powered vehicles to BEV, battery only vehicles. And we haven't really seen any hybrid vehicles in between. So you haven't really talked about hybrid vehicles. So is this transition going to happen completely to BEV, or there is a place for hybrid vehicles in there? Because I'm thinking about people living in rural areas, they might not have access to, such a wealth to buy a BEV, and there might not be the infrastructure to charge the vehicles and things of that sort. And for those people, I would think that hybrid vehicles would be a better option. Can you please comment on that?
Right. Very valid question, Simona, here. And this is one question which we as an investor also deliberate upon, right? Which will come first, or which will take the lead to do that, right? However, see, let's from a history point of view, there has been hybrid vehicles already present in India, right? There are specifics when we talk about specifically about four-wheelers. There are hybrid vehicles which are present in India and are getting operated in India. However, their penetration is not even, let's say, 0.0001% for that, right? And the reason primarily for that is traditionally, yes, there has been predominance of ICE vehicles, right? Now, what is happening in specifically if I talk about rural India, right? So what is happening in rural India is that most of the two-wheelers, right, they are getting transitioned, or let's say they are two-wheelers, they are electric bicycles, right? So these let's say low-range, low-cost vehicles are actually taking predominance, which actually are getting charged through home charging system, where you can actually plug into the normal power sockets, which are in any case available in India. So they're getting charged through that, and for daily commute, people have actually started using those vehicles, right? Till date, while let's globally the charge or let's the lead has been taken by four-wheelers globally in this transition. In India, the transition is actually being led by two-wheelers and three-wheelers, right? That is where the real mass adoption is happening. So my sense is, I think while yes, hybrid vehicles does have a real play here, but the effective ecosystem for that, I would say, is not has not been developed, right? And now electric vehicles are taking dominance in developing that ecosystem.
Okay,
so most likely it will take the lead.
Just a quick question on that. Is the government giving incentive to buy those vehicles? Is there some sort of support?
There are certain supports, both from central point of view as well as there are specific state electric vehicle policies where they are providing subsidies, they are providing capped charging rates right, to these vehicles. So all of those supports, there are exemption in registration charges. So all of those supports are being given. Okay. So specifically, frankly, in India, and just to let's say bifurcate between an electric vehicle and a normal vehicle, right? In India, typically a normal passenger vehicle will have a white number plate with black black numbers, right? Electric vehicle will have a green number plate, right? So you can actually immediately see and identify. So there are certain roads where toll charges are also exempt for these kind of vehicles. So these are the specific, let's say, exemptions and incentives which are being given.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Mitra, I had a question. And this is actually along, have you done any studies along reuse of batteries? So if you were to have batteries that were, say, used in a previous application, say electric vehicles as an example, and then any studies on the reuse of those batteries for, say, stationary applications like the grid?
Yeah, there is studies going on, but I have not done any study yet. Okay. There is a possibility that second life, what you're talking about, second life, yeah, from the electric vehicle to storage, I think there is options are going on. And even people are predicting third life. I don't know our climatic conditions, third life will be there or not for most of the batteries. So second life may be economic, I think will be useful. The studies are going on right now, but it's no, because we don't have much data right now for electric vehicles in our country. So maybe another 1 or 2 years timeline, we'll have that detailed studies, analysis, and then come back. Whatever right now people are doing, all our data from like the Western countries like United States or Europe, mainly United States, that data, but our country's data need to wait for another 2-3 years.
I see. Well, along those same lines then, Rahul, is your portfolio of energy storage solutions incorporating second life batteries as one of the permutations?
So I would say, frankly, this is definitely in plan. In fact, we have been scouting for second life battery suppliers or technology providers, those batteries which we can test. But as Professor Mitra has said, there are companies actually who are doing that, but they're doing it at a very, very smaller scale, right? And the batteries actually, because see, we would, for our stationary storage projects, we would need high voltage batteries. So these people are primarily reusing or repurposing it for low voltage applications right now. So they are, as of now, there are very limited suppliers who are actually doing that. But we frankly are very, very interested in scouting for that, in searching for that. And we are actually trying to do a small pilot to actually test that out and try and see if that ecosystem or a business model can be worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's a lot of studies, certainly in the United States, and especially around the Stanford area, because that's a big question. As we electrify transportation and the batteries become available or are none either going to be recycled, because a lot of places are considering mandatory recycling, which is going to be very expensive, or second life purposing and repurposing, and how the economics will play out in that space. The climate around India can be a challenging temperature, humidity. Can you speak to that in terms of how that compares to what you've discovered in terms of battery performance in a region like India versus other parts of the world?
Yeah, I can quickly state about that, and then Professor Mitra can take it over. Yeah, so frankly speaking, this is actually a unique situation which we have found out, and we found out it pretty quickly, especially with the reason that most of the RE, as I said, was happening in the western part of India, where it's basically a desert, right? So the temperatures are high. The conditions are, I will not say humid, but definitely you can say the air quality is not that great, with lots of soil, lots of particles in the air, right? So that is definitely impacting the performance. We have been, when we actually designed the container for those storage systems, so we had to keep those things in mind. And but one thing which we have found out is the auxiliary consumption, because of the cooling requirements, especially in that time, tends to be pretty high, pretty high. So we are almost losing out almost 9 to 10% purely on auxiliary losses because of those climatic conditions.
Wow. That's very significant. Yeah.
So yeah,
Please go ahead.
okay, 1 minute. So I have done some simulations, but experiments is due. What we observed that if your temperature, because our temperature daytime and nighttime also a difference, not only day wise, even month wise, all are fluctuating. If you look at, I put in the map, what we observe in simulations, that even chemistry, not only chemistry, even format of the battery, if it is cylindrical, if it is prismatic, there is a huge difference on the capacity fading. That we have simulated. Now we need to do some kind of experimentation and environmental chamber to simulate our Gujarat atmosphere and see how our Maharashtra, we have very high humid and temperature high. This type of atmosphere, need to see which format, which chemistry actually gives you better cycle life. So we have the simulation right now, but we need to see validate by the experiment. Even cell level, there is a difference.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more question, Jimmy?
Yes. Let's do one last one.
I just I couldn't I was thinking about lead acid batteries, and that's a chemistry that's been around for 150 years, and it's very stable, cheap, recyclable. So there are a few good things about that chemistry that would probably make a viable solution for certain applications for renewable, not much for automotive and transportation because it's too heavy. So have you looked into that as well, or are you thinking about doing that, or you are completely discarding lead acid battery as a technology to improve renewable penetration?
No, definitely it does make sense, Simona. As you rightly said, it has been for ages now. And one of the good part about lead acid is that it is fully recyclable also.
Yes.
Right. So that is that also helps. However, again, while it is good for a few applications, right, when we are using it as a backup, not so high response this thing, but for other applications, frankly, we would need much more reliability and voltage, which with the lead acid batteries we were struggling, although we still were able to do that, but actually the transition and the life was playing a big spoiler on that, because ultimately, let's say with lithium ion you can actually run 2 cycles on various days. With lead acid, running 2 cycles will be almost next to impossible with such kind of applications. Yeah. And let's say they might last for another 2-3 years, not more than that, which again will pose a problem. So right. While we have been using it, but not so progressively.
Makes sense, absolutely. And does Dr. Mitra have an opinion about lead acid?
Yeah, lead acid, the performance deterioration with let's say every 10 degrees centigrade performance deterioration is already known, and that we also observe in our field trials. And but I won't discourage fully, but there is some percentage will be used even for economic I think analysis wise. If you look at it, some percentage will be there along with other chemistries like lithium chemistries only is penetrating, but good percentage will be there in India at least. That much my opinion is.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So we're out of time. I'd like to thank our speakers, Rahul and Professor Mitra, for joining us and our first kickoff on our regions. And we look to have this continue with deep dives into other regions of the world. I'd also like to talk about our next upcoming symposia, which is on March 11th. And we'll be having presentations by both Dirk Sauer and our very own host, currently Simona Anori. Please join us for that. It'll be very exciting to hear about the transportation grid and advances in lithium-ion BMS systems. And also, I think we have another thing, right? Yeah. Also, we have our monthly tech talks. Our next one is coming up on Tuesday, March 1st. And these are, for those of you who are not aware, these are the sort of headline research results presented by the students who are actually hands-on in a lot of this research. And also, if you want to learn more about Stanford Energy, you can check us up on the website there, https://stanford.edu/energy. With that said, thank you again to our speakers. Thank you, Simona, for co-hosting with me. And,
my pleasure.
And we look forward to seeing you guys on March 11th. And then for those participants that have received invitations for the backstage, we'll see you shortly on the backstage. Thank you very much, everyone. Be safe. Take care.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.